It was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle. An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him. And my understanding is that she was hit and is deceased. These vehicle rammings are domestic acts of terrorism. We're working with the Department of Justice to prosecute them as such. We will continue to protect our ICE officers and in cooperation with other law enforcement agencies as well. Domestic acts of terrorism like this will not stand, and I'm grateful that we have the leadership in Washington, D.C. that recognizes it.
In case you missed it, this is what DHS Secretary Kristi Noem loudly proclaimed as fact just a couple of hours after Renee Nicole Good was shot and killed by ICE agent Jonathan Ross in Minneapolis. Anyone who saw the multiple pieces of video evidence knows that Noem is lying to get ahead of the results of the official investigation, so much so that even corporate media anchors like Jake Tapper are doing their best to take Noem to task.
They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle. That's not what happened. We all saw what happened.
It absolutely is what happened. Those officers had been out in enforcement action. A vehicle had been stuck. They had come to help get that vehicle out. That's when this individual started blocking traffic for minutes and minutes.
You said that the woman attacked them and surrounded them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle.
Blocked the road for a long time and was yelling at them and impeding a federal law enforcement investigation. And that's what you need to focus on, Jake, is they were breaking the law by impeding and obstructing a law enforcement operation. They were breaking the law already, and these officers were doing their due diligence of what their training had prepared them to do to make sure they were handling it appropriately.
You said within hours of her being killed, you said that she was a domestic terrorist. How do you define domestic terrorist?
She weaponized her vehicle to conduct an act of violence against a law enforcement officer and the public. As they are doing that,
how can you assert with certainty that she was trying to hurt the officer as opposed to she was trying to flee the scene?
if you look at what the definition of domestic terrorism is, it completely fits the situation on the ground.
Some people say that it clearly showed that she was trying to hit him and did. Some people say, no, she was clearly trying to move her car and flee and get away. I don't know. What I'm saying is, how do you know? How can you assert for a fact within hours, before any investigation, this is what happened?
The facts of the situation are that the vehicle was weaponized and it attacked the law enforcement officer. He defended himself and he defended those individuals around him. That is the definition. When there is something that is weaponized to use against the public and law enforcement, that is an act of domestic terrorism.
And look, Tapper does a decent job here of trying to press her on her answers, but I don't understand why they let people get out of these moments when you can pin them to the truth. She just keeps saying, I was there earlier in the day. You have to reply, what does that have to do with anything? This happened after you were there. Do you get to foretell the future because you had visited that particular area? She keeps saying that it's absolutely true that she used her car to attack and try to run over officers. And you can say, so do you not see her turning the car to the right? Do you not see that? You clearly see it, and that's where no officers were. So does that not factor into your thought process? And then when she says that she knows all of the facts, and he says, don't you need to wait for an investigation? Don't you need to press her and say something to the effect of, so do investigations no longer matter in this country? Do you get to decide exactly when somebody is guilty and innocent? Does the legal process in this nation no longer adhere? Does it no longer matter? Force that issue until you get an answer, because we're living in a time where truth can just be rebutted by opinion, and when the people in power have no tethering to the truth whatsoever, it's a very dangerous, very scary place for our nation to be in.
Not one.
We all seen the video. I don't need to relitigate it. We've all seen the video. She is blocking the street. They approach her.
You haven't seen the video of the entire morning and the previous encounters with this individual.
Oh, we have aired it. Yes, we have. On Thursday, we were airing and noting the fact that she was there for several minutes, for minutes and minutes and minutes. She was protesting without question.
And at previous locations that morning, that these vehicles had been previously down the block on video that you haven't seen. There's more information
but
that this individual
question is
was
not
impeding law enforcement operations throughout the previous moments and hours before this incident
The question is, what was she doing when she was moving her car?
The question
That's the question.
Is why are we arguing with a president who's working to keep people safe? Why are we arguing with law enforcement operations that have gone on in this country for years?
I mean, it's just patently, unbelievably absurd for Noem to claim that Trump wants to, quote, keep people safe while literally defending the ICE agent who shot and killed a U.S. citizen in broad daylight. Let's be real. Let's not be guilty of what we accuse others of. The immediate reaction of the right was to blame this woman and call her a domestic terrorist, which is completely insane. By no stretch of any definition is she a terrorist, despite Noem saying that she is. But also, it's true that the news, the left-leaning parts of the news seem to cover up or not cover for days and days and days and still barely want to acknowledge it, that apparently she was tracking and harassing and trying to impede the work of ICE earlier in the day. And that you may think is okay to do or not okay to do, but the fact that it's not being covered tells you something about the slant of the news. And if we're not able to admit facts that go against what we wish the narrative was, then we're just as guilty as those who do the same on their side. The debate, the argument, the morality always needs to be based on facts, obviously, if we're to live in any sort of reasonable, rational world. So you can take that fact in and say, even if that's so, even if it wasn't just having dropped her kid off for school minutes earlier, but was in fact trying to impede the progress of what ICE was trying to do, impede the forward motion of what they were trying to do, that's not reason to be murdered. That's not reason to lose your life. And then you can talk about the nuance, and you can get into the fact that when someone's getting conflicting orders coming at them, when they're being harassed, they don't know what to do, they're going to panic. It can't be the absolute immunity that Vice President Vance complete bullshit claims is something that ICE agents have, which of course they do not. Otherwise, you're literally saying you have a cowboy force and we're living in the Wild West and there can just be street justice whenever an ICE officer wants there to be. They don't even have jurisdiction if somebody is not reasonably suspected of being an illegal immigrant or is directly stopping them from arresting someone and detaining someone who they believe is, which is certainly not what Renee Nicole Good was doing. You're allowed to protest. You're allowed to not want chaos in your cities, and you can't blame a populace that is being terrorized and pulled out of their cars and thrown around for not wanting to be pulled out of a car and thrown around without due cause, for not wanting to be at the mercy of untrained, out of control, nervous, rogue officers that are just wanting to assert brute force on the American people. So of course that's going to create anger and confusion and chaos. And maybe that's what the Trump administration wants. Aside from the hypocrisy, obviously, of these self-proclaimed small government conservatives defending state-sanctioned violence and civil rights violations, supposedly they don't want any of that. Supposedly they don't want big government except when it suits Donald Trump and the Trump administration's very aggressive, insane, and prejudiced agenda. Then it's totally fine for some reason. But we have to have some consistency in what we say and what we do and who we are. Otherwise, what is the whole purpose of this nation?
DHS policy authorizes use of deadly force only, quote, when no reasonably effective, safe, and feasible alternatives appears to exist. Could he not have just gotten out of the way?
This individual and this officer is a highly experienced law enforcement officer. He has years of training and specialized training for these types of situations. We're grateful that he's alive. It's a tragic situation, and we're going to continue to work on the investigation into the individual and find out what the motivations were behind her actions that day.
What evidence are you looking at that so many other people around the country look at and they say, it looked to me, her tires were turned to the right, she was moving her car, and they see a woman trying to flee? You say she was trying to kill the officer. No investigation has happened. Why are you so certain that your interpretation is the truth when an investigation hasn't even happened?
And that right there was a good moment from Tapper, a really great question, actually, showing the backwards logic and the might is right, the strength, we'll just do whatever we want, and that's all that matters. Don't you want us to keep you safe? You elected us to do this. No, nobody elected you to shoot American citizens in the street or shoot anybody in the street.
Jake, I'm watching the videos.
Other
I'm
people are
talking to
watching the
officers.
videos
I'm getting
and
the
coming to a
facts.
different conclusion.
Everything that we've stated as the Department of Homeland Security and this administration has been factual, and I wish we would talk factually about what we see every day from these protesters, what they do, what they say, how they chant over and over, kill ICE, attack law enforcement, how they're trained to perpetuate violence against them and to stop the work that they do every day. So these individuals that are out there harassing them while they do that work, doxing their identities, threatening them and their families, it's unacceptable. And that's why President Trump is so strong in supporting their operations in all of these cities.
The officer appeared to have fired 3 shots, the first one through the front windshield, and the second and third through the side window. What is the justification for the second and third, given that the officer was out of harm's way?
You're watching the same videos that I am, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're watching the same ones. So you see how quickly the situation unfolded, how the officer was in front of the vehicle when she sped off, how she ran into him, and how he had to take quick action based on his training to defend himself and his colleagues around him.
Once he's out of harm's
That's
way.
very clear and factual from the videos that you can see. It's nobody's interpretation. We don't get to change it because we can see it with our eyes and we can build on the evidence that we have on the ground.
The Trump administration and the broader Republican Party these days are hell-bent on trying to normalize these kinds of tragedies, immediately going out there before any evidence is out there saying domestic terrorist, look at how she tried to kill ICE agents, and just tweaking a narrative when that is obviously not what any responsible person in charge would do. They would say, a tragedy happened today, we will investigate it. But humanity is in question lately in this country and around the world. And so let's just hope that better minds can prevail, that autocracy can be stopped, that we can somehow still have any semblance of a legal system, of checks and balances, of Congress checking the president, of the judiciary checking the president and Congress, and of all of us supporting the downfall of any autocrats, whether here or abroad, and to which that point I digress at the very end of this video and say let's support a free Iran as well. No more allowing dictators to oppress the individual rights of human beings yearning to be free. That's what America stands for. That's what humanity should stand for. And we should stand by and behind and support anybody fighting against those trying to take freedoms away from any populace, from any individual person. Because you only get one life, and it should be a life where you get to do what you want to do as long as it doesn't hurt others. I'm Ben Gleib for Rebel HQ. You can follow me at Ben Gleib on Instagram for lots more.